Hello, all. Hi, I'm Casey Durango of Go Keto with Casey here, where I like to talk about how I've lost 97.4 pounds since starting the ketogenic protocol and how you might be able to lose weight, improve your health, and regain control of your life. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your Saturday this Saturday before Christmas. Hope all is well, and I hope everyone can see and hear me. It's always a crapshoot about whether that's going to work or not. And today I want to talk about something a little bit more personal. As the title implied, it's life for us around here, my husband and I, since we have started the protocol. And if someone can just give me the thumbs up that you can see and hear me, I'd really appreciate it. Hello from Delaware. Hi from Patty in New Lenox, Illinois. Happy Christmas. Great. I'm so glad you can. Thank you for that confirmation. I've been following this protocol for nearly 6 years. January 8th, it will be 6 years. And sometimes I have to stop and reflect back on how things used to be. Because now this is my life, and it's my husband's life. Oh, thank you, Cuckoo. Cuckoo and Grandmother Clock are aligned, but they're both a little late. Sorry about that. So what is life like around a keto, 100% keto household? My lovely mate, who never really had a weight issue, when he got to be in his 50s, he put on a little bit of weight around his tummy, but he's never really, you wouldn't have known it, and he got to his goal weight like between 8 p.m. and 7:30 a.m. the next day, and has been there ever since. He started about 6 months after I did, not really for weight issues, but just because he'd gotten kind of draggy and laggy, and he heard the lectures I was listening to on recorded lectures, and he was hearing the same information I was hearing about the health benefits. So what does a keto household look like? I know some people are trying to ease into it. Some people are trying to dive into it. Some people are trying to drag their families along with. Some people are in it alone, which that's a tough situation to be in if you don't have support of the people around you who should want the best for you. But that's the way it is sometimes. So, and by the way, our dog is keto. Our dog, Jack. I don't know whether you can't see Jack. Jack is back there. He's at the window waiting for my lovely mate to return home. My husband's been flying his airplane around. People say, "Where does your husband fly?" I said, "He flies to get gas." And then he flies back. We have an older dog. And so I make his dog food. It's pretty simple, and it's ketogenic, and he loves it, and he's healthy, and he's live. He's not quite 10 years old, and he's doing pretty well. For instance, life around here, it's not terribly different. People think this is an enormous change. In one respect, it is. It's the opposite protocol. You do kind of everything the opposite of what we were told to do. So we don't do low fat. We don't get in so-called healthy whole grains. We don't get in 5 servings of fruit and veg a day. But we do eat pretty much the same food. We just leave off the carbs. We haven't added anything to our grocery shopping other than when we get something that's no longer low fat. We don't do low fat sour cream. Ugh. We don't do low fat cheese. We certainly don't do low fat milk. So the items are very similar, only they're the natural full fat versions. We put heavy cream in our coffee, limited, it's not unlimited. And we still buy beef and poultry and pork. We buy bacon and sausages, fish. We just don't buy tortilla chips. I used to make our bread. I would get wheat berries and grind them in the Vitamix with a dry attachment. Grind the wheat berries into whole wheat flour and make whole wheat bread every Sunday. We don't do that anymore. But we still have the steaks. And we have the poultry, but we leave the skin on. We don't get boneless, skinless chicken breasts. We get chicken thighs, dark meat with the skin. We don't buy, my husband is from Colombia, South America. Rice and beans were a staple in the house, along with tortilla chips and plantains, patacones. Ugh, so delicious. But when he decided to do this, he just said, don't buy any more rice. We used to buy it 50 pounds at a time and 25 pounds of beans at a time and 5 bags of the giant abuelita tortilla chips at a time, because my husband would make fantastic homemade salsa, which he can still do. We just don't use chips for it. He kind of ate through it. And then he said, stop making bread, because I had already stopped eating that stuff. It was about 6 months before he started. So life around here is very much the same, except that we both feel better. We both have more energy. We have a lot more time for life. There's a lot less time preparing food. And our grocery bill continues to decline, believe it or not. I track our finances much more than I track anything that I put in my mouth. I just keep my carbs 20 grams or fewer. For those of you who don't know, the protocol, as I learned it, as it was taught to me and as I followed it, carbohydrate intake, keep it 20 grams a day total, not net carbs, or fewer. Eat fatty sources of protein. And frankly, any of the foods that can be found on Dr. Westman's official page 4, there's a link to that below. There are lots of versions of that food list out. Please be aware. This is the codified version that Dr. Westman recently put out. So if it's not on that list, don't eat it. Don't eat if you're not hungry, and stop when you're satiated. That is the sum total of the protocol. You will notice that there is not the M word used, macros. There is nothing about how many grams of fat or protein to get. There's not really a mention of calories, because if you don't eat, if you're not hungry, because when you start burning fat for fuel, your appetite and hunger is naturally suppressed. Don't eat if you're not hungry. You will naturally consume fewer calories. Less food. And stop when you're satiated. You don't have to clean your plate. Seriously, you don't have to clean your plate. Better the food should go to waste than go to waste. Or put it away for tomorrow's fuel. Or give it to the dog. Excuse me. I have to keep my whistle wet when I talk so much. So life around here is just like anybody else's, except we feel better. I'm 61. I feel better now, I promise you, than I did when I was 31. Certainly than when I was 41. And heavens, I feel better than when I was 51. Our outlooks are better because we are not staring into the future fearful of what might happen as far as our health and medications and aches and pains. We cannot. Now, our life is not perfect. No one's life is perfect. Our days are not perfect. My days are not perfect. And just because I've been doing this for so long doesn't mean that I don't have to still every day remind myself that I don't eat if I'm not hungry. And guess what? Some days I ignore myself and I still eat if I'm not hungry. And I can tell a difference. It's not a huge difference. My weight fluctuates maybe 5 pounds and has done for like 3 years. So sometimes I'm bumping up against the top of that 5 pounds, sometimes against the lower part of the 5 pounds. And I feel better when I'm at that lower part of the bell curve. And it almost always has to do because I don't eat foods that are, other than one little foray into mixed nuts over the Thanksgiving holiday. I have to remind myself that I don't eat mixed nuts. None of us are perfect. And I just talked about this the other day. And I'm going to give a quick little plug for Patreon. Some of you are here. I can see some of the patrons are here. I do 20 little videos a month in the morning in my kitchen table before the sun comes up half the time, and certainly before I look presentable. And they're just called snippets, and that's for the $3 plus patrons. And then up from there, we have patron-only live streams, patron-only video group sessions, and patron-only one-on-ones with me, depending. But I said this the other day, that there's no shame in having to remind yourself what you don't do or what you do. It's not like, oh, I've got this down pat, so I'm a professional ketoer and I don't have to worry about it. No. And there's nothing wrong with realizing that, you know what, every day I've got to remind myself that I don't eat if I'm not hungry, that I don't eat mixed nuts. I sometimes like to draw the analogy of I'm from North Carolina and a Tar Heel fan. At least we used to watch it when Michael Jordan, and Dean Smith were the dynamic duo at Carolina basketball. Michael Jordan went on to the Chicago Bulls. Of his time, the greatest basketball player there was. And guess what Michael Jordan did? 6 days a week, I believe. He went to basketball practice. He practiced every day. I look at this as a practice every day. Yogi who lead yoga classes, they're still practicing every day. I'm not an expert on yoga, but I'm going to guess that there's not a yogi who says, well, I've got that. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So life around here, my husband still, and by the way, as we lose weight, grow smaller, and by definition are older, our fuel requirements and possibly our carbohydrate intake is impacted. We need to tweak it. So even now, my husband, who is and has been at his goal weight, some of you have met him. He's a fine-looking, trim man. He's got a six-pack. He'll be, he's a little younger than I. He's 59. He has a six-pack. But he wants to make sure that he continues his good health as long as possible. He travels to Colombia a couple of times a year. We have a small coffee farm there. And he's diligent because he's learning what he needs to do, what he needs to absolutely avoid, how much food he needs to eat. Remember, part of the protocol is don't eat if you're not hungry. Stop when you're satiated. And as we grow older and things change, we need less fuel. Just imagine this. How much could we get away with eating when we were 18? And if you were a male, I'm the sixth of 7 children, 5 older brothers. My mother always just said, there's just the garbage can phase of when a teenage boy is growing. It's just, you cannot get enough food into them. But that's not the same for that exact same human 25 years later. They need less fuel. Same thing with females. My body is no longer preparing every month to host another human. Thank goodness. But when I was younger, my body required more fuel. Now, I didn't fuel it well. I cannot show you any before photos on this platform, but go to my blog, caseydurango.com, and links below to a lot of things are below. Look at my before photos. I was I was fat for 30 years. A solid 30 years. And I was solidly fat. I didn't eat the right food for me, but I could, if I ate that same amount of food and the same type of food now, I would be like a puffer fish and I would weigh much more than I weighed when I started because I require less fuel. This is something that we have to tweak. So that's kind of where my husband and I are right now. We're enjoying this stage of life. We have 3 wonderful grown children. By the way, I don't know if she's listening or not, probably not. But I do want to give a shout out to a young lady named King, our granddaughter. Today is her 6th birthday. And I just spent about an hour Skyping with her. They live elsewhere. So happy birthday. So we are enjoying the fact that our grown children are high functioning, self-sufficient, have been off the payroll for a really long time. They're happy and healthy. There's not much more one can ask. And we're enjoying the fact that we're healthy. Neither of us take any medications. We don't even take supplements. We don't even take vitamins. I do take magnesium. So I guess I do take a supplement because I am prone to nighttime leg cramps. My husband is not prone to nighttime leg cramps. He does not supplement with magnesium. And people always ask which magnesium. Again, on my blog, if you go under resources, you can see the magnesium that I take. Slow release magnesium recommended by Dr. Stephen Finney. So life around us. And by the way, did you see the photograph of my dog Jack standing next to me? Another thing that's different. That's a photograph of me. Full-length photograph of me. I don't think I've ever published one of those before. When I do Stitch Fix unboxings, I don't show the clothes. Some people are irritated by that. But it's just enough for me to make videos because I'm going to guess some of you were exactly the same way. Maybe you still are. You do not allow yourself to be photographed. Or if you do, you certainly don't look at them. And you threaten bodily harm to anyone that publishes a photograph of you. So that's a big difference. For one thing, this is not, I used to have a different career and I do this now. It became very organic. And I actually came across an email from a while ago. I was going over and it's a long story. I won't even go into the detail, but Dr. Eric Westman, I had a question for him and he and I become acquaintances because of the Durham support group meetings and I would attend. And I asked him, I said, I need to ask you something. I'm feeling like I don't need to be doing my current career anymore. I really feel like I have something to add. And he was very encouraging, saying, you absolutely have something to add. Go for it. Talk to people. So that's what I do now. So that's a big difference. Our life now is this. My husband keeps pushing me to make cooking videos, which Casey's a lazy cook. So I don't make cooking videos. Plus, I'm not a big, I think people should step away from the food. So the other day I said, I tell you what, how about I'll videotape you making food if you like it so much. He said, well, okay. What? I don't know what the future holds. I have no idea. I tell you what, it won't be fake baked goods. It'll be, here's how you grill a steak. Here's how you bake a chicken. Here's how you spiralize zucchini. But anywho, what is life like around? This has changed our lives. It has changed our lives. Both of our lives. And I bet there are people here typing away whose lives have been changed as well. And you have changed other lives. This is one of the wonderful things that I just got a message from a woman the other day. She started, her husband fell in line, didn't fall in line, but started as well. And now they have impacted her in-laws who are 300 pounds plus and ill. And they were very vocally resistant to it. Some people are going to say, that's crazy. You're going to kill yourself with that diet. Really? Where were you when I was eating the abuelita tortilla chips? You weren't so worried about me then, were you? You didn't worry about me when I was at your cocktail party, eating bowls full of Chex Mix. You weren't worried, and I was 100 pounds heavier. You weren't worried about my health then. At least not to my face. How did I get on that little thing? That was a little thing that just popped up, didn't it? So our life, and let me tell you what people are, what are you eating a day? I used to share that and I don't, because no one should eat what I'm eating unless like they're living exactly my existence. They're my age, unless they're my clone. Some days I eat very little. Today I've had no solid food. It is 12:19 p.m. Eastern. For no reason other than I'm peckish, but I'm not particularly hungry. But I've been very busy since I woke up. I've not stopped with one thing or another. So I tend to push the peckishness. Here's the great thing about this. Peckish does not mean I'm going to pass out from hunger. Peckishness is not an emergency. It's just, oh, well, I could probably eat, but I'm okay. I am going to take another little moment here to add, because this kind of folds in. First of all, when they're gone, but the 2020 calendars are in, and I've got a batch more to go out. And each month has different, hopefully, inspirational, motivational sayings. And they always sell out. So I'm very gratified at that. And if you're a $5 plus patron, make sure you get your discount. And also, here are little cards that I send out. I just got the new ones in for $10 plus patrons. I know it sounds very self-promotional, but this is an added thing. I can and I will. There's the first card that went out. This is about every couple of months. I'm stronger than a cookie, because we're stronger than cookies. We like to say, I'm powerless. I'm powerless against snickerdoodles. No, you're not. You're stronger than a cookie. We've all been through so much. Think of the things we've overcome in our lives. Excuse me, make sure that is. Oh, goody. It's my son. I only interrupt for my children or my husband. But here's the last one. It's a different shape. It's a square instead of. Don't be discouraged. Be determined. Apparently, I said that during a snippet, and someone repeated it back to me. So, again, if you're a $10 plus patron, new or existing, or you increase your pledge, you'll get those in the mail with a little note in the back. But we need to remember how strong we actually are. The words we use for ourselves matter. That's a big change with me. I was just talking with my daughter about something that had nothing to do with food. There's a getting out of my comfort zone thing that is coming up in 2020. And I've been putting it off for, I don't know, 5 years. Nothing to do with food, nothing to do with keto, nothing to do with, it's a totally separate thing. So I told her, I said, I'm doing this thing. I'm filling in the blank here. I mean, she knew what I was talking about. I said, I'm going to do it. Really? Really, Mom? I am. I'm going to do it. And I had to stop myself from saying, I plan on doing thus and such, or I intend to do thus and such, or I hope to do thus and such, or maybe I'll do thus and such. Because, as Yoda says, somebody here can type it for me before I can even say it. The saying from Yoda. Hey, Bethany, patron. She writes, 2020 will see a smaller me. Bethany writes, I think you both cooking together will be worth every minute of a newbie in keto or an ongoing. It would be a different type of food video, because I'm not all about trying to ketify food that got us here in the first place. My son again. It would be really kind of the basics. How to roast a chicken, how to grill a hamburger, how to slice mushrooms. And Shell, hey Shell, thank you. And I knew, given enough time, someone would write it. Do or do not. There is no try. So I did this. I had to, and I have to still, because I'm scared about doing this thing. I'm apprehensive. Actually, I've put it off for more than 5 years. I've probably put it off for a couple of decades. But we need to change the way we talk to ourselves. Not, I hope to get through this last couple of weeks of the year. Hold, please. It's my husband. Hey, babe. I do not. Okay, everything went well? Okay, honey. See you soon. Bye. He always calls me when he's safe on the ground. And I always answer because I want that call. What was I saying? Can't remember. It'll come back. Let me turn my attention to some of the comments, and I do really appreciate the comments. Don't try to. Carol, I would like to know what your favorite coffee is. I love, love, love Café Francés International Coffee by Maxwell House, but it has 8 carbs and is not keto. Okay. So Carol, you may not be a patron. I don't know because I don't know your last name. It's one of the going things on my snippets with the patrons in the morning is that very often there'll be this mug of coffee that is slid in front of me as my husband has made it. I got to tell you, we own a coffee farm in Colombia. Good coffee. But my husband's preference, and he makes it for me, so I drink it, is Nescafe. So somehow when he makes it, it's much better than when I make it. So it's Nescafe, some Splenda, which, I know there are very strong feelings about non-sugar sweeteners out there, but we prefer Splenda. We've tried them all. And 2 teaspoons of heavy cream. Now, heavy cream is allowed, but it is not unlimited, right? I think it's 2 tablespoons a day, I believe. Anyway, and he stirs. And the solid to liquid mixture is enough that he stirs. It's almost like coffee mousse. And then he pours the hot water and continuing to stir, and it's frothy and delicious. That suits us. Some people, now I do not recommend, if you're trying to burn body fat, I don't recommend putting MCT oil, which is really, there's almost no reason you should use MCT oil if you're trying to burn body fat. Because if you're trying to burn body fat, you're screwing yourself because MCT oil cannot be stored. It must be burned first. So there you go. But so-called bulletproof coffee, oily coffee, whatever it is, it's very calorically dense. Do what works for you. And I tried it a couple of times. It was okay. Then I realized, wow, I really still want to burn body fat, so I'm not going to do that. But some people love like skinny syrups, Torani sugar-free syrups with different flavors. You just have to find what works for you. But a lot of people have reported they just started taking their coffee black, and though they didn't think they'd like it, after a couple of weeks, they prefer it that way. I'm trying to quit coffee. I have so much energy. I have a hard time sleeping. Thanks for adding, Shell. Okay. Yeah, so he's gone. And I may reach out to some of you in the future who are regulars on the live stream and ask you to be a little moderator, because I don't see a lot of these comments when they're new. And again, how could it be dangerous? It's just food. And have you seen the statistics about the increase in type 2 diabetes, hypertension, since people have been pushing the low-fat diet? And don't get me started. There's just not good science behind it. Please do not engage with him. Excuse me. Okay. Hopefully he will not be seen again. Jacqueline. Hey, Jacqueline. Writes, new low this week. No migraine headaches for 2 weeks. Can I tell you something? For one thing, I don't know how people function with migraine headache. I've had them. I had them in my youth. And I don't know how people show up for work every day with them. But there are so many situations where I'm sorry, I got distracted by a comment. Conditions that are alleviated or disappear when fueling ourselves with the food we were designed to eat. Migraine, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux, acute asthma, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Please be aware that if you have PCOS and you thought you were infertile and you start this protocol, as Jackie Eberstein says, babies happen. By the way, speaking of which, another little plug. Go Keto with Casey, Alaska Cruise, July. Port of Seattle. Eric Westman, Amy Berger, Jackie Eberstein will be joining us. You're going to have full access to them, to me, and to each other. Check it out at my blog. And also, Dr. Eric Westman's Keto Retreat in Beaufort, North Carolina is just about a month away. Link below. I'll be there. Jackie will be there. Amy Berger will be there. Dr. Eric Westman obviously will be there. There are going to be musicians from Ottawa, Canada. There will be music. There will be dancing. And again, there will be true life stories. So there are events coming up. And if there are no events that you can get to or that you can afford, start your own. Start a meetup. Start a support group. Put an index card up at your library, at your church, at the coffee shop, in your dormitory. Start your own, because almost certainly, if you're interested and have questions or ever did, there are 50 people just like you who have questions. And you never know whose life you may impact. Just share your own experience. That's all I can do, is share my experience and my understanding of the protocol. Because I am not special. I am you. I was, from my mid-20s to my mid-50s, was morbidly obese, totally round, spherical. And I have the best life of anybody I know, but I was unhappy in my own brain. And step by step, I started checking out of my own life. I stopped participating in my own life. It was like I was unworthy to be a participant in my own life. I'm just like you. I have no special gifts for this. I just got to the point where I didn't want to go on living another 30 years if I was going to feel like that. And I knew I was on board to get type 2 diabetes. I'd given up on losing weight. I just didn't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. I've been diagnosed and treated for cancer 3 times in my life, starting when I was pregnant with our 3rd child. But I couldn't stand the idea of having to tell my family that I was going to lose a foot or a kidney or my eyesight or my life to diabetes. And that's when I Googled how to not take insulin for diabetes, came across Dr. Eric Westman's white coat video, January 8th, 2014. My life was changed forever. Hey, Nancy. Nancy writes, I've been going on and off keto since Thanksgiving. I read somewhere that on and off causes blood vessel damage. Have you heard anything about that? No. I don't know why it would. I've never heard that keto one way or the other impacts blood vessels. It's what's inside the blood vessels. What you don't want is you don't want plaque inside the blood vessels. And guess what? How plaque builds up? Insulin resistance and glucose. So, yeah, in that if you keep going back on and burning glucose, but it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen since Thanksgiving. There's a lot of misinformation out there. But to stay with it and don't go. I know it's hard. Because it's a slippery slope. But don't be discouraged. Be determined. You can and you will. You're stronger than Christmas cookies. Think about the things you've gone through in your life. Deaths of loved ones. Unhappy and unsuccessful relationships. Troubled children. Rotten bosses. Personal injury. Really? Is a Christmas cookie more powerful than you? No. We just have to remind ourselves every day. I don't eat carbs. I don't eat if I'm not hungry. I don't have to remind myself about the carbs. You should pardon the expression, that's baked into me now. But I do have to remember about don't eat if you're not hungry. And I have to realize that I need less fuel now than I did a year ago. And this will continue on. So thank you guys very much for allowing me to be part of this, part of your Saturday. And remember that your life on keto can and will be very different. It just really will be. It sounds like, nah, that's probably not true, but it really is. If you follow the protocol, do what you want to do what works for you. But people out there trying to sell you kits for non-existent medical conditions, or powders or supplements or exogenous ketones, or telling you you must pack in the fat to burn the fat, wrong. It's not the presence of fat, it's the absence of carbs that get you burning fat for fuel. You don't have to buy one thing to be 100% successful at this. You don't even have to buy calendars or be a patron. You just need to keep your carbs 20 grams or fewer a day. Total carbs, not net. Eat fatty sources of protein and a bit of non-starchy vegetables. And don't eat if you're not hungry, and stop when you're satiated. You don't have to test for beta hydroxybutyrate, which is the blood reading on ketones. You don't have to test for acetoacetate, which is on the urine strips, and you don't have to test for acetone, which is the breath. You don't have to test. If your hunger disappears, you're probably burning fat for fuel. Carb up days, a myth and ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Not based in science. It's ridiculous. Oh, it'll shock your system into starting to lose more. Okay, I'm going to poke myself in the head with a fork. That'll shock my system as well. Probably won't make me burn body fat. So, again, thank you. I probably won't see you again, at least not in a public forum, until after Christmas. And have a great one. Whatever holiday you're celebrating, if you celebrate it all, and no matter what country you're in, remember that you're stronger than a cookie or a snickerdoodle or an M&M. You're stronger than pasta, rice, bread. And if hunger is not the problem, food is not the answer. Enjoy the holiday and the people. Put food on the back burner. Again, you should pardon the pun. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you before 2020.